All right, we're live. We're good to
Excellent.
go.
We're going to call this evening's meeting to order at 6:30 PM here on the 19th. In physical attendance, we have Dr. Douglas Tikibellis, Council Member Jennifer Ludwig,
Here.
Member Tim Pimento.
Present.
Excellent. Town Manager, Ms. Marchand. And then remotely, we have Erin Bosworth
Here.
and Jonathan Pasqua joining us remotely, and I myself is present. Excellent. Quick review of the evacuation plan, as we all know, behind us to left. I'd like to approve the receipt of the meeting minutes from November 15th, which are included in our packets and I think electronically sent.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank
and
you.
It'll need a second.
Seconded.
Second, excellent. Thank you, Tim. Okay,
And then we had a vote.
oops, sorry. Do we have to- all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you. So for tonight's business, I believe we had an excellent 2021. We had a lot of ideas on the table. Many members, I think, have brought up some amazing ideas. And we did miss our last meeting, but what we'd like to focus on tonight is a presentation that we put together that we'd like to share with an upcoming town council meeting to discuss what we think is, and can everyone hear us okay? I mean, here live, we have some masks on.
You're good.
So Erin was kind enough to put together the enclosed presentation. Her and I collaborated on the content here, and what I believe we'd like to do is present the idea of an engineering marketing firm to help us assess the town's strengths and the town's weaknesses. And certainly, Tim, I know that you've said it before, the existing town's positive opportunities to help us really market the town as is, to help existing businesses to potentially lure in new businesses. And, you know, Jonathan, as far as an EMT safety standpoint, brought together some meetings ago about the cross connection of a road. I think that while it's great ideas, I think a professional organization that has the skill set to do a needs analysis on the town, I think would better help us than some of the great ideas that we've shared. That, to be quite honest, I just don't know the heavy weight, right? Everyone has great ideas to share, but to prioritize all of these, I think it needs to all fundamentally be based on the existing structure that we're sort of in lieu of or sort of missing, right? And I think off of that, we could build on something. I also think too, that it would provide an excellent plan for our planning committee, for the town council, for the town manager, and certainly for us. I mean, admittedly, we all have bright ideas, but whether or not they can be executed. And I think as we go back to the COVID funding, you know, we're in a historical time where there's funds available. I've been looking at a lot of different towns and communities, from, you know, federal to state to towns and cities. It seems like money's being spent in various ways to do various things. A lot of it has to do with infrastructure improvements, which I know that we've talked about to extents here. I think this town misses the greatest opportunity with infrastructure to base any growth off of, to be quite honest. So thinking about all that, I think, you know, Erin and I put together this presentation to introduce ourselves to the town and make some recommendations. And please, Jeff, you go. Yep.
Yeah, so just for a little background, before we go into the work here, do you envision this as something like the two of you coming to a council meeting, or everybody, or kind of how do you see this?
I think it'd be wonderful for all of us to do, to have a moment to speak. You know, I certainly don't mind carrying this through, but I'd love it to be more of a collaborative effort. I think it would be great for us to introduce this very great group of people of various backgrounds and all of our equal passion to grow the town. I mean, collectively, all of you volunteered to be here for the passion you have of Coventry, and to see it grow. So it would be wonderful. I'm
Yeah.
not throwing this onto anyone's shoulders, but, possibly within our intro, we could speak about what we do professionally, our tenure here in the town, our investments in the town, and, just basically our shared equal passion for it to grow. And then we can carry on, and certainly we can offset certain aspects of this to those that have the best, strengths and weaknesses to share. Or
We
we can
have
just
been
take it
doing
singly.
some, I'll call them work sessions with a few of the boards and commissions.
Mhm.
So for example, we just had one with the Historical Preservation Society,
Okay.
Commission, excuse me. And so I get the feeling that the rest of the council would love to engage more and see what these groups are working on and
Sure.
help provide some direction if possible. Maybe, some ideas that they have themselves. So I think that would be a wonderful collaboration. Now, I know our meetings are so long. I know this on the town council side. I know they're super long, but maybe we could time box it or we can figure that out. I do work on the agenda with President Dixon and Town Manager Marchant. So when this is ready, we can kind of bring that in for discussion.
Okay.
And maybe we
What are
can-
what are the options? So other than, so like obviously going to a town council meeting and getting on the agenda, are there, and again, I know the open
can't
meetings
have more
laws
than-
and we can't,
Yeah,
So, like,
three of
what-
us together.
having all that said, like what can we do? Other than just going to the town council meeting?
Alternative, well, it's either a town council meeting formal and the regularly
or
scheduled
this.
meeting, or a work session where we schedule it on an alternate night for a single purpose.
Okay.
The single purpose meeting is something that, everyone's very busy and I don't know how much anyone wants to
Yeah.
give up
Another
another
night,
night in their
yeah.
life. But they will do it for things of sufficient priority to address as this is something we have to look at.
And
I
this
don't
this
know
wouldn't have to
that-
be the only thing. So we could come up with one or two other things that we want in that time block and say,
Oh, no,
Hey,
I'm fine
we'd-
with
we'd love,
introduction
like,
and
20 minutes with the council, something like that, and present
Yeah,
this. and then some other
generally,
ideas.
that's what as far as expediting a council meeting, because there's so much business to conduct. If you can keep it to 15-20 minutes, that's the sweet spot where, if everyone did introductions and you had one spokesperson, that would be adequate. And if anyone chimed in, it's just
Mhm.
incidental, but
only two.
we don't want to drag it out longer than it needs to
course.
be.
Correct.
So it's really about making a focused message,
Yep.
a brief conversation, and kind of presenting your recommendation to the council, letting the council ask some questions, and then, moving on to the next item. So if that's the expectation parameters
Yep.
that you have, then we can work really well with that.
But only two
Certainly-
of us could go, right?
No,
No,
no. We
everybody.
could, well, we could advertise it as a dual meeting, which we had to do for the Historic Preservation Commission. So we would advertise it as an EDC/town council meeting so that the
So we
whole
could all
board could
go.
be
Or
there.
who, yeah, because I would definitely like to go.
Yeah,
But Jen, to your point, if we scheduled a small work group with certain town officials and select members of the TC, would that enable us to?
So you can only meet with two of us at a time. Otherwise,
Okay.
it has to be public meeting.
Okay,
But I think several people would be interested in this. So I think the public session would be great.
okay.
So
So officially, we'd be meeting twice, once as a short buy-in workshop, and then second official.
no, altogether.
Oh, okay.
So for
okay, I'm
example,
sorry, I
whenever
misunderstood.
we're ready,
Okay.
not right at this moment, but whenever we're ready with the material we want to present,
Mhm.
then myself and Ben can help get us into an agenda.
Okay,
And then we'd, basically what happens is, in the public meeting, we'd be on the agenda. And either in person or over the virtual link, we would have you open the meeting for this group because the town council would have already opened on their side.
okay,
And then we would say here, open the meeting, and then we'd start the discussion.
all right,
And then any follow-ups from that, we'd take back to our own meeting the next month. Follow-ups, and then we can always report back in some emails or put something together for Ben to present or things like that. So we don't have to kind of wait to go back into council meetings if we have follow-ups that we can have Ben announce.
okay. Okay,
Okay, cool. Thank you for the, for the.
yeah, no. Thank you. Okay, so we have our members and our overview, a little bit about what we have done, what we do on the second page of the presentation. Moving on to recommendations to consider. So not to be not to reiterate what I just said, but you know, Erin was great in putting together the step one and the step two, right? It's a bit about looking at the current strengths and the current opportunities, and then, you know, going into a far more detailed to what could be afforded, to what the budget is. I raise a hand as to whether or not the town's ever used such a consulting group before, to anyone's knowledge, to do any type of planning work or evaluation. Off record, on record, I understand that the end of the year is hectic for all of us, right? Everyone who holds many you know, roles within their governments, also have families and careers and things like that. But I have tried reaching out to so many different people at the state level, really terrible with no responses. I know, Jen, you sent over some great information. I've tried reaching out to folks, and it's been really sort of like out in the gray hole. But as we get into our new year, I think, you know, just when people see an email, they think about priority and priority responses. I think I've got a lot of out of offices that never seem to come back. It's just, but anyway, so, you know, trying to reach out to say, you know, because again, I mean, other cities are doing things right now, and who are they leveraging? So yes, so basically this is just, you know, our step one and our step two.
Can we talk about step one?
Sure.
One thing that, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is, but
Someone's beeping.
for number one, it might be good if we specifically say what we're asking from the council. So
Okay.
for example, this is what this company would do, but we need to say something to the council like,
They
we're
need.
recommending to the
Create
council
a
to,
solicitation.
yeah,
to-
create an RFP.
Yeah.
To go out to find these services, and then use this for possible consideration in the 2022-2023 budget, something like that. So I think we just need to be a little bit more specific of what we want the council to do.
Okay,
I think slide 3, the conclusion, does offer that a little bit more clearly. I don't know if we either want to move that up or remove some of
Okay.
the in
Yep,
between
sorry.
slides.
I spoke too soon, Erin. I should have known you had it covered.
That's okay.
But yeah, maybe those just go under step one, you know, or whatever,
well, we sort of just wanted to
or it
do
doesn't
the
matter.
overview
Yeah,
piece
yeah, yeah.
here, and then in the second slide for community initiatives, you know, kind of look at some of the other things that we have discussed. These are some of the great ideas that, you know, folks have shared here, that sort of encompass what we'd like to achieve as well, and then more or less do.
So
And then-
I'm so sorry, can we go back to the recommendations to consider?
Yeah,
I think number one is, and I'm just peeking at your conclusion page, but like submitting the RFP, that feels very easy for number one. I think number two is the one that is a little bit loftier, because we're basically saying, I don't know what we need. We should hire someone to figure out what we need. So I'm almost wondering if this could be something almost like in regards to the strategic planning sessions the council has had to consider something like and I'm gonna
Phase
look at-
2, future phase.
yeah, almost like for right now, we're asking for number one. We think number two would be helpful for us as a stage 2 or a secondary recommendation. Could you consider this as part of your strategic initiative planning for the town? Possible outsourcing for this request.
I was just gonna say, isn't part of the whole strategic plan, wouldn't we do that anyway? That's part of the figuring out the direction of the town, really. So, I mean, we just had one on January 11th. I don't know if maybe that this whole thing can be part of that strategic planning.
I took it as number two was basically a result of number one. So
Yes.
we're gonna hire and then by hiring, so our recommendation is to first of all, plan and budget for this study, the hiring, which you have to go out for an RFP, but
Which should include.
right, in the deliverables of the RFP is number 2.
Correct.
Like, that's what we're asking them for. And then number 3, in addition to what it says, is incorporate the results of the plan into other strategic and, both short, medium, and long-term town planning. Or strategic plans, or zoning, like it should hit everything. So this document that, the EDC is recommending get created by hiring this professional firm is going to be our menu.
So just thinking about this because realistically, the ask in number 1 is to highlight our strengths. Those things already exist. So for example, I know that we've talked about some ideas like, all the hiking trails, and why don't we get the trust group involved on what pieces of land we have and things like that. So those would all be strengths and assets that they'd have to document, create some sort of campaign for us, something like that. Number 2 feels a bit more like an entire review of what businesses we have, what businesses we don't have. Like, this feels much larger as a deliverable to ask someone, like another firm, to come in and do. So I'm trying to understand realistically how we would do.
So
Number
there are
2.
2 different analyses. You're right. The first one's a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. The other is a gap analysis of what do you have and what are you missing. I think the Rhode Island Department of Commerce would be a tremendous asset because they should already be keyed in to Rhode Island strengths and weaknesses in areas, and they may already have a profile for Coventry. So I don't know who else in the state to talk to, Department of Labor, Department of Revenue, but the commerce guys
Yep.
would be the ones I would go to first in terms of they're into business development, and they can talk about the trends that they're seeing across the state and what they think would be great for Coventry. Because I'll take all the free advice I can get first, right? No sense paying for something that the state will give you. But then they can help us kind of, start putting some dots out there, connecting some dots. And then at the point we feel we want to hire a consultant to really refine and drill in a certain area, we'll be a lot more specific about what we're asking and what we're paying for.
So to your point, Tim, about this kind of being like the result of number 1, is it almost like our short-term ask is to get things moving, start with this initial strengths assessment that we could then use for marketing or whatever. And then a longer term ask will be this, but we'll come back to the council when we feel like we have some of the answers from the first part. We'll do our homework with Rhode Island Department of Commerce. It's almost like this may be something that we tell them we're working on, but not necessarily a recommendation just yet.
Well, again, I think the recommendation is definitely number 1. So from there, and I'll add to, I'll add to Ben. So I guess in my mind, just as a singular member of the group here, it was so, and if you remember I came into this asking lots of questions about exactly that. Where are the databases? What are the lists? Like, what properties does the town own? What properties are developable? So either we as a committee are going to be hunting all that down, or we find it through the state, or we hire somebody to gather that all for us.
Even
So-
better, we have a volunteer who already did all the maps.
Which I've
Okay.
seen and has already.
So that's what I'm saying.
presented.
So we need to understand what we have. So like, you can't build a house, right, without the foundation. So I guess I'm at the foundation, and then the ultimate after SWOT, gap, then really what it is, it's marketing. Because we're not going to be out there selling we're not going to be directly out there banging on the doors and sending emails like, hey, move to Coventry. Maybe we will be, but I'm talking about in a general sense. You need a Hayes and Sherry. You need, Cushman and Wakefield. That's who's out there.
What is that? I'm sorry.
Real estate developers, they're the ones who, so we need to assemble all the tools that the town will then need. So it's everything Ben said. it's lists, it's database, it's pictures, a nice brochure, and then you retain a firm, because again, I don't think Ben has a real estate, expert on staff or dedicated to, doing this stuff. And then the town gets the money by renting and selling and bringing business in, and they get a cut.
So do we want to consider one of the outputs from this analysis, some of the marketing campaign that we've used in the short term, like
We
on the new
can,
website or things like that?
but like I said, that's the last piece. So I guess in my mind, we were struggling to figure out where we were gonna start. And to start, I thought this was great, because this is the start. It's assembling the data, it's doing the gap, it's doing the SWOT. And then once you have all that in front of you, you can sit there and say, okay, we have all the data, all the inputs that the town needs to go out to the world and say, come to Coventry. So the last piece is that marketing piece. It's the selling, it's the business attraction. And it certainly is going to be working with Rhode Island Commerce. And Rhode Island Commerce does have some of those assets and some of those databases. They have, they have some of that stuff, but again, there's a lot to gather. And that's just one piece of it. So we need a firm to come in and identify all that stuff. That's, to me, that's what I thought the ask was going to be. And I think it is.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Immediate economic growth, correct.
But it sounds like not before what you were mentioning, Ben, is trying to gather as much free information as is available. And would you be able to create a suggested list for us to start digging into different parts? I don't know, the organizations that we'd be looking for to find information on Coventry through the state that you're going for.
It would start out just having the conversations with Department of Commerce,
Yeah.
And seeing what they know, what they have, and taking their advice. I'm very excited because I'm in the process of hiring an intern and an assistant town manager.
Nice.
And that will free up a lot of capacity to work on things like this and get it organized and move it forward. Yes, I'll have capacity shortly to at least make those phone calls and start putting some things together.
Or is that something we can assist in, and if you delegate it, or?
You are absolutely.
I- you know,
If any of you
I'm
made
happy
the
to
calls to Rhode Island
participate.
Commerce, you could get all that information pulled together ahead of time.
It's not easy.
I'll use an
Okay.
intern to, and if you want a data dump, I'll use the intern to sort it and make it look pretty and digestible, but yeah, you got to start there with what are your facts on the ground, what are your strengths and weaknesses, and when it comes to a consultant, there's these real estate site selectors. They are your headhunters for businesses to bring you to a certain place. And I would think that that's what we want, is we want to hire a site selector to give us an honest analysis of where's Coventry in the marketplace. Are we, what markets are we in? What markets are we not in? They'd say, don't even go with circuses. You need to focus on peanuts. It's whatever it is. And they can give us a really good idea of where to focus our efforts.
Right.
And they'll tell us what, in order to, if you want to get this level of business investment,
right, this is
you're
what
going to
we're
need this level of infrastructure.
To me, it becomes our playbook as a committee. We can sit, because we're gonna get this menu, of exactly what in my mind, that's exactly what we need is a playbook of what, where should we be focusing? Because, you said it perfectly. We all have, we proved it, how many, we all had wonderful ideas, and we could literally spend every night of the week sitting here just talking about ideas, but which ones are realistic? Which ones are affordable? We need somebody who's out there doing this stuff to say, you know what, don't even waste your time over here. Here's where you should be, this area, and maybe a little bit of this. And then, further on down the road, when things change here, you can, and then we can start going to Ben and the town council and saying, this is where we need to be doing this.
What then would be the top 3 infrastructure needs that we need, like sewer? I remember it being mentioned earlier.
Sewer extensions, for businesses,
Water.
water capacity,
Yep.
and broadband.
Yeah.
If you're missing any of those three, you're gonna be at a huge disadvantage. Now, maybe there's a manufacturer that would want natural gas or something, or certain availability of electrical power. And maybe National Grid doesn't have 1.2 megawatts available at this location, and you'd have to look at a substation and running, you get into these bigger things, it's like, well, if you're not set up for it, that's not your target audience. But if you're close and the location's right, maybe it's worth the investment. And these are all the kind of high level views. You're like, well, you're just down the road from this substation, so power is available. There's a lot of options.
But I think when Erin and I spoke to, I think this town has grassrooted every effort, and we're here today. As a result of that, we have this potential income and money that we could possibly do something more professional with. And we're just trying to really ingrain the fact that you can't call the Department of Commerce with your professional career day to day. I can't, you can't. I can't speak for the two of you, but just that we can't keep just going out there as, country bumpkins and trying to get things done on ourselves. We need the strength of a professional organization that basically is hired, and they change their templates because they know what they're looking for, and they're going to get to an end result for us so much faster because they're going to know everything that you just said when they put in our town into their database of analysis. They're going to look at our town instantly and know power, broadband, this and that, sewer shortages, water issues. And they're just going to start plugging and playing. I don't think any of us has the capacity to do something like that. And it's only going to be a significant delay and us just running around in mud to get something done. So I think that in my mind, when Erin and I were working, step one is really going back to your point, look at what we have. So when you're on just the general internet, Rhode Island's Day in Life in Rhode Island, they talk about walking paths in Coventry. That's not sponsored by us. They talk about the hills out in Western, West Greenwich, Charlestown Beach. This is just a publication that's highlighting all these benefits of different towns and cities in the state of Rhode Island. Well, we'd like to get behind a marketing campaign. So if I'm watching the nightly news, there's a commercial about Coventry, and it draws people's attention into exercise in town, spend money in town, dine in, walk. So I think that's what we want to do first, and talk about generally, get that company in to do that marketing campaign for us based on the strengths we have, but not put it on the table too far out in the future, to do the needs analysis like immediately. So as they're turning up all the good stuff in town, market it fast, get the traffic in, but then not too far in the distant future, we have to look at, why we can't expand any further than we have, right? Why is Route 3 at a stalemate? Why is this part of town at a stalemate? Well, it's because of shortcomings with infrastructure, and that's where it gets mapped out.
Yeah.
But like we want to hit one now, like Q1, like as the spring's coming around. And I think we could do that because any company that we hire is going to just look at Coventry and, oh, well, we've done that for North Kingstown, or I'm just making this up, right? But or they've done this for a town in Western Massachusetts or in South Carolina, and they're just going to like plug and play and give us results right off the bat.
Yeah, it's all in how the scope is written.
Absolutely.
And I agree with the timing, but I mean, with respect to the two members on the other side of the table, I'm sure that it's not budgeted for this fiscal year. So, I mean, because this isn't going to be, a 10,000, this is going to be, $15,000-$20,000 if you want to do it right. I mean, it is and the investment though is worth it because
So that's what we're going up to the
because
board, right? Asking
and
for-
again, we're doing this because we're not the experts.
That's right.
Like you said, we have lots of great ideas, but the experts are going to tell us candidly, what we just said, like, and I'll even, steal a bit. So even though there may be parcels, sections of the town that don't have utilities, they might say, you know what, that's okay. You have a lot of open space and it's only a mile from the highway. Warehousing. It was just a huge article that I read about warehousing is booming in Rhode Island. So You know, there's gonna be opportunities even without utilities, but they're the ones who are gonna be able to say, this area would be good for this area is good for that, et
I
cetera.
think you're on the right track. You have a recommendation for the council. You'd ask them to consider doing an RFP. The RFP, if it's written with a really tight scope, really clearly, then hopefully that gets us a lot of proposals. And then we can see just what the market is. How much is it gonna cost?
Yeah,
Is
what are
it
they
15
offering?
to 20 or is it 60 to
Right.
70? I have no idea what.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know. I may just throw
And
a
I just
number
want
out
to
there.
keep on leaving a meeting, throwing everything to your plate either, because I feel like that's what we've done. And I understand
No,
what you
you've
got
taken
going
the ball
on.
and run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I
No,
mean.
this is
we-
great. I think, I mean, Aaron, and, you know, thank you. This is, I thought it
No,
was
but-
great.
But I just can't feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna speak myself, that I throw a lot of stuff, like, we leave and it's thrown onto your lap, or like, but it's hard to take it to the next level
But
as a
that's
layman
kind of
too.
the story,
you know what I
right?
mean?
Yeah.
That's the story we bring to the council to say, hey, listen, we're not experts, but we have this passion. We have
Yes,
several business owners in town. These are some of the ideas that we've come up with,
correct.
and we want to keep working with you to do this plan.
Mhm.
So that's just the intro.
Right,
So,
right.
and anything that we come
Absolutely.
up with, we bring it to the council, and the council says, okay, I have 100 priorities. Where does this priority fit in there? And then we have to pick and choose what we have, the town work on.
And I
Mhm.
think another part that would help it is just outlining beyond the RFP, like, okay, we get a consultant, they define our niche. Ultimately, we're hoping they can tell us which investments or series of investments will have be most impactful. And then we're looking for some kind of a catalyst, an anchor business that's not just going to be successful on its own, but it'll spin off successes around it. It'll bring people to your businesses and, bring prosperity to the town. and
Well, I think
it'll
even
be a
before that,
rainmaker.
though, I think it's define us, market us, but identify the town.
Well, who are you marketing to, right? That's the piece.
Yeah, we need that before we get to the actual marketing.
We
But
want
yeah,
to
I know what you're
market
saying.
to Rhode Islanders,
Right.
people who live in Eastern Connecticut. And, we want to just market to people to come in and enjoy Coventry.
And let's not forget too,
In
I mean,
turn
so
of them spending money here, in addition to doing what they want to do.
one thing, and it's so easy because there's so many of us in the room that are business owners, but, another part of economic development is also residential. And I know that not every, but I mean, there may be opportunities for certain types of residential. That brings more people into the town that are paying taxes that help fill the tax rolls and support your businesses. So, I mean, Anthony Mill is done and Harris Mill is done. So, there's no more mills maybe, but maybe there's an opportunity for something else.
Mhm.
Not ultra high density, but it doesn't have to be, cutting down forests to build
And-
cul-de-sacs
And that's
either.
exactly what a site selector would tell you. You want to focus on this kind of high density residential, or you want to focus on warehousing.
Yeah.
They'll tell you which niches and which areas of the town, because Coventry is very fortunate to have a lot of area.
Right.
And a lot of different parcels with different
Potential
makeups,
uses,
right?
yeah,
The
definitely.
profile is so different just along Route 3 from one end, from
Mhm.
95 to the other end, that there's every kind of different business that would be interested in
That's
it.
what gets me concerned is you're trying to draw in new businesses. We're going back to what we talked about earlier on, was about having a town identity. And if that's not lost or being lost through just, massive, business expansion, or just to get the economy booming in the town. Are there measures being taken within the plan? Because I think it's pretty generous within the plan. Once a new business comes in, there's not a lot to deny it, to set up and get going. And but they've done something to try to improve the aesthetic look of things. They've raised the standard, I think, a little bit.
Mhm.
So once we get through this, I wonder if that wouldn't be a good.
So
That's
the perfect
focus,
example
right.
of, if we could take credit for this, it's already happening, but on Route 3, next to, I think it's Jay's Havana Bar, where you have the open
yeah.
field.
Yes.
There's a proposal to put in 2 turf fields
Yeah,
for
soccer.
soccer and competitive sports leagues play. And that investment, it's completely private, had nothing to do with the town. They want to come in, and that investment is going to drive traffic
Yeah.
to businesses.
Absolutely.
People are gonna be hungry and get gas, and they're gonna, the kids before or after need to get an adjustment and get
Yeah.
them,
Right.
whatever happened.
Tournaments
Sure.
alone, so we're a soccer
So,
family.
so,
We
so
know,
that,
huge.
yeah, sports marketing in that whole industry, even if it's just kids, is huge on a community.
It is.
And that's an example of something that if you said, we need something like that here, then it will have all these spillover effects. Now, knowing that that's already in the works, maybe we want to build off that and say, okay, let's find other, we don't want
Sure.
to compete with soccer, maybe we don't have the ideal land or affordability, but maybe there's other areas that we could focus on in a similar vein that is also going to change the dynamic of, wow, people never came to Coventry before from other parts of the state. Now we're getting visitors
Perfect.
from
Mhm.
from Woonsocket to Westerly.
I was actually making notes. I mean, so, even some of the old town owned properties, schools, and I know that there would be an investment needed, but, and you talk about you don't want to sell anything. I obviously agree. But rent out, I mean, gymnasium to somebody who's going to fix it up. And they run a for-profit basketball league or something. I mean, there's lots of opportunities like that.
I guess I'm least concerned with what the town owns and what they do with it, personally. I mean, I'm more concerned about bringing awareness of the town to people outside of the town, getting them in here to spend money. And number two, looking at the infrastructure opportunities in this town, because I can't really go out and suggest an industry to come into town to invest on, I mean, we're not in real estate. So all this open land that's privately available for sale, we can't dictate what can and can't go there. But what we can do is try to help the town focus to
Yeah.
improve the infrastructure. So potentially something better can go there than a storage unit
Sure.
facility.
Well, it's
You know, we don't want to become a
I want
distribution
both.
quantity.
What are your investments
I want both.
and what are you gonna market?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm least concerned about marketing people's real estate.
Right.
I want to be able to show
Yes.
the opportunities in this town so bigger companies can come in and settle where they should be settled and keep the main street where I think a lot of residents are going to have concerns with, but keep the main streets and elevate them by all means. And some of this energy got going with these COVID funds and how other towns are using it to put in, ice rinks and all these great things, parks and and that's just going to attract people and elevate, because I'm all about elevating this town to the next level. I'm tired of it being this
The
status quo,
perception.
because we have zip codes right around us that were much in worse condition that are now becoming better, and they're doing a great job with that.
We've been-
So, we need to bring it up a notch.
Yeah, we've been talking about getting the information in front of us. You're talking about, what about existing businesses? I'm wondering if,
Tax breaks and
yeah, I'm wondering if we should consider in one of our recommendations saying something like, after the ARPA survey. I don't know if anybody has been to the town website recently. We have the COVID money survey at the very top of the screen.
No, we haven't.
Um,
I'm gonna do a code red tomorrow and
and
text
ask
it out.
everybody. So firstly, everybody here needs to fill,
Yep.
you must fill that out.
yes.
But secondly,
Haven't
I
seen that
wonder if one of our recommendations is, after the ARPA survey comes down, could we do an EDC related survey that says, what are some ideas that you'd like to see that would help local businesses? What are some ideas for future businesses? Just to get some intel outside of these, four walls here. So that could possibly be another recommendation to say we'd like the opportunity to put a survey up after the COVID survey comes down, something like that.
Right, I mean, it's been done every time, anytime there's paper on a business, everyone's inquiring about what it should be and what it needs to be, but again, you're dealing with personal property, private property. It can become anything.
Mhm.
I don't know how, not to knock, but I don't know how valuable that would be for us to understand what should and shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like
Well,
I
it's
really
less
think we
about
have to
new-
focus.
It's less about like identifying businesses. I think I know what you're talking about. Like someone says, oh, another AutoZone or something.
Exactly.
I'm thinking more of a question like, are you a Coventry business owner? What would be helpful from the town for you?
Mhm.
Something like that.
Specific, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
To how to improve your front to get to the next.
Well, just
Yeah,
just
and
in
that could be
general, for
general, it could
business
be
owners.
Taxes, as it could be, yeah, what more support can the town?
Well, like in my
potentially bring
experience
the-
coming to town, driving by on Sandy Bottom Road
That's a great-
in that
great
whole strip mall.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know where to turn in.
Right,
I don't know how to get through the
Right.
parking lots.
Right.
It's, nothing's marked, nothing's clean. Now, that's partly a private property owner, whoever the mall owner is, isn't doing any investment in the mall at all.
Nope.
But it's also a reflection on the town, and that's what you see,
That's
and you
right.
pass a judgment, and
Right.
there's businesses in there that I can't see, and I'm not gonna turn in because of it's just a mess, and I can't find my way, so wayfinding signs, better signage. So with that specifically, if you were to get a recommendation for the consultant that he says, you need to have a placemaking design standard with, maybe that's an area you invest in, street lamps and benches and
Yes. Start from the road.
and some landscaping to have a pedestrian corridor that brings people into the site is something that we can all imagine how impactful that would be for just someone driving by.
if you just look at where Dave's Marketplace is, that's an example of that, what it was previously to what it is now, and they came in and just said, no, this is our standard, this is where we need it, and
Mhm.
transform that whole plaza.
So, but a lot of that should
Come
that's
in-
the tension. It should be a partner with landowners and business development and, I've had landowners that are saying, well, you're the town, you market it for me.
Yeah.
Well, how about the town build something on it and lease it from us? We'd love to build it for you, because yeah, anything that makes them making
Right.
money easy, that they're open to, but I did try to market their property. When people came and asked, I said, this is a great property. Then they go to the owners, and the owners wanted $1 bazillion for it, and then they didn't get anyone.
Right,
So
right.
that there are limits to what we can do with the private market, but to the extent that we feel like the private market is underrepresented, unknown, and that there are opportunities that we can bring, assuming that there are local landowners that want help developing their property and with the right businesses, it's all part of the mix, right?
Mhm.
It's part infrastructure, part marketing, part collaboration, part visioning, all that.
How do you begin collaborating with someone who's a plaza owner, inviting them to a meeting, or how do you bridge that relationship to say, hey, we'd love to
Everything
see
starts
this.
with a relationship.
Yeah.
If anyone knows that person, reach out.
It's been there for as long as I've been alive.
I'm sure that if there's a vacancy in any of the shops, there's a phone number that gets you in touch with them.
Yeah, right, right.
But
I think though too,
My-
I don't know
my-
if that's one property owner or many.
Who
I think
knows?
it's of many, but
Well, you
if
don't know
the
until you
Sabre
go knock
town
on
went
the door,
in with
right?
a defined roadway and, sidewalk area and per zoning requirement set up where the entrance and exit should be, because right now it's like a quarter mile of you just doing whatever you want.
and that's the
But if the-
difference between old
Concrete
development.
jungle.
Correct, but
versus
if the
new.
town came in to define that and made an investment in the roadway, I think it may trickle back.
Right.
From what I've heard, there are certain property owners in that area that are afraid to make major investments because they're afraid of the signs having to be moved because of all the work that's been done there for years and years and
Yeah.
years. Sandy Bottom Road is such a short little space, but it's been
Torn up and repaved.
torn up
Yeah,
because of the
so-
water pump and because of
Like
the
every
water
2
level
years.
issues,
Yeah.
the bridges, I wouldn't I wouldn't spend 60,000 on a beautiful sign if I knew it was going to have to be moved and I don't even think people know where the road ends and where the property begins. Like it's so undefined.
So
So
that we're talking about a redevelopment project, really. And with redevelopment, there's a couple of ways to go about doing it, where you could say, let's do a local improvement tax.
Mhm.
All the property owners there agree to self-fund a tax that can only be spent on that property. And whether it's tax increment financing or whatever, there's an incentive that, hey, what you're putting in is going right back here. Kind of a tax deductible thing on your taxes. It's
Mhm.
and there's an incentive. And if there's a plan and a vision that, okay, I'm gonna build a sign, but I know it's gonna follow this plan.
Right.
In that the other businesses are behind it, the town's behind it,
What did you
Mhm.
call that then? Something incentive?
a tax increment financing
TIF.
district. Or program, I don't know if Rhode Island has them, but
Other towns.
most
do.
states
They
do.
do.
Some states do it really well, some states do it really poorly. But any kind of mechanism that encourages and induces redevelopment, that's something that we could do as part of the comp plan, part of the planning commission. We could say, this is an area of focus. We want to hire a consultant
Well, part
to
of this as well, I think this could fall into
to
two.
draw us pretty pictures and say, what is this supposed to look like if it was done right?
Right. This is
But
part
again,
of part
so
two.
I would just say, it may be part of, yeah, depending on where, and we're talking about this, right? So I think it depends on what everyone's vision of part two is. Because now we're getting into, we're getting into specifics again without knowing the results of part one.
Mhm.
Right, so we could probably all agree that, the aesthetics of Sandy Bottom Road could certainly go a long way to helping everyone's best interest. But we may get the results of, and they may say, no, these 5 things are so low hanging fruit that, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, so
And maybe
I'm
we
not,
need a part 3.
that's what I'm saying, but it gets us a starting place.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that would be something that we would want to do. But I guess I'm just so excited about getting a
Part
place
one-
to start.
part
right,
one
and then
is
we
just
can come in
telling
here.
everyone-
We can come in here and literally like, okay, here's the report, and then we can go in like, wow, like this, okay, what can we do
Right.
to get to item number 4, or, whatever it is. I don't know, I'm
No,
excited.
but part one is just looking at the sundae and
Yes.
telling people how nice it is.
Yeah.
You haven't even tasted it yet, right?
Right,
Um,
and we need the ingredients.
two is looking at the infrastructure components,
Yes,
to Ben's point, of everything there about, just like the Wi-Fi issues, because you're gonna know when you layer certain maps that engineers look at through all of the utilities, like they know where everything is going and then where it ends.
Right.
They know where the new water main is to
Mhm.
where the wood one is, right? That
Yes.
we still have in this town. So it's like, they know all that.
Yep.
And they're gonna better be able to sort of identify growth areas for us too, I think, a lot quicker than what we'd be able to
Yes.
do.
and again, whether we get it for them, which is easy enough, or,
And if Sandy Bottom Road is a growth area,
yes.
they could potentially look at.
And they'll be,
TIF.
and they'll be able to identify, the future projects, I mean, again, I'm sure RIDA could give us a list of what's planned, but they'll incorporate that and they'll say,
Right.
okay, well, this road quality right now is a C-, but good news, RIDA plans to fix it, or,
Or put the
National Grid,
sidewalks in, or-
water ends here, but, I'm not water, get
line.
natural gas ends here, but National Grid, well, we have their 10-year plan. Good news, they're gonna extend it a mile. So it just puts all of the stuff we've been talking together in this plan,
Absolutely, yeah.
or
And
in
then
this.
I think it allows us to focus where we could
Yes.
focus to do improvements like we talked about with Sandy Bottom Road
Yes,
or other parts of the town too. And create these great ideas to enhance parts of the town that can go forward.
Yep.
Without significant infrastructure opportunities and things like that. Am I targeting? Okay.
so what do we need to do? Because this is, I mean, Aaron, I don't know. Oh, she's still there. So, again, I appreciate you guys putting this together. So what can, as a member of this group, like, what is it that you need from us, me, to get this to the finish line?
So I
Well, we
think,
still have one ask, right? Do you wanna go to the community initiatives, Aaron?
I'm sorry.
I considered this number 3 because it's labeled 3 on the conclusion.
Yeah, so it's slide 5 in the full presentation. But in the conclusion, it's point 3. And basically what we're asking for from the town is an immediate investment of some sort. Exactly how much that is again, my perspective is we want the ability to go out and work with some of the other either groups or individuals in the town, for instance, the Story Walk. That's something that has been in other towns when they've done it, hosted by the public libraries. is that something that our public library has the ability to support? And if so, let's start to work with them to identify a cost. If they don't, is there any other groups that could potentially do it within the community? And the same thing with the Hidden Gem Project is, you know, can we invest in something like this? Is the town willing to invest in something like this? And if so, then we can start to try to figure out where should that project live.
So could we maybe ask for these to be specific amounts, almost like for the story walk? Make a recommendation of some kind, like we'd like to ask for, you know, the small amount so that we can partner with the library group, or, you know, whoever we partner with.
If
For
someone
printing
would go
materials.
talk to the library first and ask, are there grants they could go for? Is this something they'd be interested in partnering on? You could refine your ask just a little bit more, knowing.
And
what there
again,
isn't. And obviously the Parks and Rec department, they don't have staff right now. They would love for you to advocate for them to get staff to put on a program.
that would
like
be
this.
helpful.
But that's where everything starts getting interconnected. And as you, I mean, that's the value of having you as a committee, is that you all have contacts and resources and you can reach out and you can start building the groundswell of community support, that the town council can be reassured that, hey, this is something that people are interested in. And while there is some risk to it, it may not pan out. It's a worthwhile endeavor because there is interest and support for it.
And I see so the story walk, you know, the library folks are the experts, like, so they're our consultants. So I would almost say, hey, you know, Warwick and East Greenwich has done it. Maybe you know somebody over there, but could you find out, you know, what it would take to do something like that here? And
Or
then,
has it been done here in the past?
exactly, you know, they could probably just, you know, or they know, it's Rhode Island, everybody knows each other, right? They can, oh, I know so-and-so at East Greenwich Library, I'll call.
Could I make one, Aaron, if this,
But
honestly.
I think it should be included. I mean, it's obviously its own separate item apart from the RFP.
I
and the
was gonna
plan, but
ask if
yeah.
we could just delete this slide for the moment, if it would be okay, because I think I want to stay focused on 1, 2, and 3 and defining 2, because I think we're looking at this, you know, that I think it'd be very confusing for a TC audience to hear 1, 2, 3, and then initiatives that we're looking to do. I think the initiative thing, make just parking lot for the moment. And then as a group, we could make the connections that we wish to make with different officials to what you were just saying. But I think I'd like to keep this more focused to 1, expanding 2, like we've discussed, and then going into 3.
But isn't 3 the
So
community? initiative?
are you saying,
Well, maybe,
maybe it's like
A new
this.
number 3?
Wow.
yes,
like,
I think it's
yeah,
a
the
new number
marketing
3.
part, yeah.
I just think we should parking lot the community initiative, Aaron, and if you feel, please chime in. But I think we should just parking lot that for the moment.
Maybe that's something you could do after you've made your ask to the council, while
Correct.
the RFP is out, while that's underway, it works, then you can.
We can certainly
having
Yeah,
focus
there is
on work
gonna,
on
so there's
that.
gonna be a lag
Other
time
things
in
to do.
between getting it funded and budgeted and RFP out on the street. And
Correct.
then get in the proposals, and then they have the town, you know, Ben's team will need to make a selection of the firm. I mean, that's gonna take a while, so yeah.
Yes, I just think we should parking lot that and then define a new 3. For it
Anything-
not.
Anything that we need money for, though, we gotta ask for right now.
Right,
And we,
Now's the
so for
moment.
example, with the story walk, we might be able to do the grant idea that you're talking about. I feel like this particular one might not need to go to the council, because we could do this ourselves and talk with somebody over at the library.
Right.
But the Hidden Gem Project, if we want to ask for any funding, now is the time for us to figure this out, because the budget cycle for the town is basically, was it July 1st through June 30th? So
We are literally in the process of building the department budgets this month and next month.
Yep.
It goes to the council in March, and then April and May is just getting ready for the budget referendum. So anything that we want to get in the budget, and this is something that you could also consider making an ask for, is like the Economic Development Commission would like an allocation of $5,000
Right.
to
for community
pursue
events, yeah.
various community initiatives and events. And if you're really gonna stretch those dollars, you could ask for matches from businesses, go out for your own grants, whatever, or you get sponsors or you do fundraisers to where, hey, I will match you dollar for dollar on this project and whatever.
So that's what I'm thinking about for the notes you put under the hidden gem project, Aaron. So if there's a possibility, one of the things that I've heard a lot from residents is, you know, things during the holidays, like the end of year holiday season or July 4th, why don't we do fireworks, or why don't we do bigger holiday celebrations? And I went to the Parks and Rec holiday celebration where they lit the tree. There was hundreds of people there. I was shocked at how many people there was. It was awesome. And if there's ways for us to ask for a small budget, so we can maybe do a project like this and piggyback one of the local events, now is the time to ask for the budget. So we can figure out how this would look later, but we need to at least come in with an ask.
And
if
this
we
is
want
the
any
first year,
dollars.
so anything that the council is willing to give you is a foot in the door, and then
Right.
how you use that is your justification for maybe a larger ask next year to expand the scope of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I sort of see it where if a firm is hired and they do a soft marketing launch, the Hidden Gem project would be perfect
Yep.
to sort of highlight within that first media launch. And I do understand you have to do funding now for the future. I get it, but whether it be proposed in this illustration or in this attempt.
These can just be examples for, you know, just to
Correct,
say, these
correct.
are things that we're thinking
But
about.
I don't want to put it off the table. I think it would be a great idea, but it would be great if it could tie into the soft marketing media about the town that we could potentially get from a engineering or marketing company. You know,
I
and
don't
now,
think
and now we're
they're,
getting,
I don't think they're exclusive.
okay, right.
So they could be combined. I'm just concerned if we don't go in with an ask, we're gonna be at
Yeah,
the
I
same
know.
table a year from now talking about this
Yeah.
again.
No, I know.
So,
And we are talking about two different companies and two different initiatives, because
Right.
the,
this is
the
what I'm just trying to
research and
separate.
data is one thing, the marketing and the promotion
Right.
is separate.
Right.
How,
So I
so if
don't want to
we're,
confuse anyone if we have this 20-minute, you know, like we're going in with this
Right.
needs request of a technical company, engineering firm, marketing company to, you know, entrench themselves
Yep.
into the town. I don't want to get people confused about then immediately doing these type of initiatives. I feel like. you
well, like
know,
I said,
that
yeah,
can calm down,
yeah,
like-
the marketing part can only come after we have the first part, right? So
Correct.
we have to have the plan, or
The plan,
we have to have
an outline or something.
the priorities. Do this, don't do that, focus here, don't focus there. And then that's what you build your marketing plan around. I have a question, Ben. So how do we find out? So if we're gonna go to the town council meeting with this wonderful PowerPoint and all that, that's fantastic. How do we know how much we're asking for? I mean, I threw, you know, is it 10, 15, 20, 50,000, 70? Where do we?
You're not
even-
asking for anything at this point. You're
Just
asking for
an
the council
RFP.
to support to do an RFP.
Okay,
When you get the proposals will list what their fees are
okay.
and how much it's gonna be. And then you can have sticker shock and say, oh crap, we don't.
Well, then, yeah, then you'd have to
But
refine
then
your
you're gonna
scope.
say,
and-
okay, well, is there another way to get there? Or is there another way to fund this? And
But what I don't want to do is I don't want to go there and they say, you know what? Great idea, we're gonna do this. But so you're putting together your budget, like, so. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a placeholder. Right? I mean, you can't, okay, I understand that we'll get the number
Yeah.
when we get the number, but if it's not, if there is a no number in the budget, then we're just gonna have a bunch of submittals.
Well,
But
this is
that's what the
probably
town council can say, though. They can say, I like this
Okay.
idea. Let's go out for the RFP. If
And
it's
we'll
not in
allocate
time,
X amount.
why don't we budget for, you know,
Okay.
50,000 or something? Or they might say, I'm not gonna budget for anything until I see the numbers and then I'll put it in next year's budget. But at least we
Correct.
have something then. And then for the,
I wanted to avoid that.
And if,
I don't want to wait
Right.
another whole year. Like that's,
well, no, then
But
we
if we
just go
don't-
into party
but
planning.
but then we're just gonna be
You
sitting on our
can't-
hands for
we're
the
gonna be
next
doing a
year.
lot of story walks.
you can't think of it that way. Because the town is not a static. We don't do the budget and then go home because it's done for the year.
Oh, I
The
understand.
budget's a living, breathing thing, and we have had so many unanticipated things come up during this budget year, and guess what? We find the money, we
Okay.
make it work. Now, it's been to the downside so far this year, but it's also been to the upside because we've got ARPA money, we have funds coming in, and there are certain of those funds that can be unrestricted that
Okay.
we could use on something like this.
And that's
because
what we're
they're
doing this
unrestricted.
now.
Maybe
because-
there's
So-
a state grant.
We have.
Well, no, it's.
You talk about the
But
Commerce
my
Corporation.
point is
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you have a windfall of money during the middle of the year because you had savings that you weren't expecting,
Okay,
the town can find it in the middle of the year. But whether or not they bother to is going to be entirely dependent on whether you made the presentation
right.
and whether it's on their radar. If you don't ask, it's always going to be no.
Oh, I'm not saying,
So-
I'm definitely
Okay.
saying we need to ask,
But
but I
if
just,
you ask and it's known for now,
yeah.
we'll look at. if
I just
there's a
didn't
way
want to
do it.
go and have this great idea. And then someone says, well, how much do you think we should plan for? And our answer is, I don't know. Like, that just doesn't look
But that's
good.
just
No,
honest.
but they know
It's just
that though
honest.
too,
Yeah.
because
Right,
we
yeah.
are
To the
asking.
extent that you
Right.
could do some outreach to other communities that have done this before, you could ask, what did you spend on it? Government is not like business. They are very happy to tell you what they spent on their engineering firm or whatever.
Well, they have to anyway, because no,
You can always hit them up for that too.
it's
but-
public record. I mean,
But
you
earlier,
can't not tell. somebody.
earlier in tonight's meeting, I illustrated how difficult it has been as a layperson to get through to these other organizations, whether it be other town council, mayor offices, there's just no response, governor's office. So I can't get anywhere as a layperson. And this is what I've even asked before, if a town manager, so there must be contacts.
Sure.
I don't know how to play the political contact role. So, I'm just someone in queue and voicemail, right? So,
I understand.
but I've done,
But I think we heard our answer. So it sounds like to me that we don't need to have a hard number. We're selling the recommendation.
correct.
I
Aaron
think-
and I did this
I
because
think we
we
should
had
have
this
some sort of
$8
general
million
number.
COVID money.
Yeah, I think we should have some general number for the family friendly initiative,
Oh,
just
sure.
because the other, there are some other commissions who do have a small budget. And so that could be a way for us to say, these are some of the ideas that other communities have done. We'd really like if there's a chance to partner with one of the groups here, such as the library or Parks and Rec. But we think we could put on a really stellar event if we had allocated, $10,000, something like that. And we don't have to know exactly what the event is, but at least it gets it on people's radar that we could do something like this with some budget. And then you might have half the people say yes or no, it doesn't matter, but at least having some sort of ask for this type of event, I think, because if we're thinking of $100,000 event, that is a lot different than a $5,000 or $10,000 event for the town.
Exactly.
So that might be a good one to say. Just in general, I know that other commissions are, have a small budget for them to upkeep certain things. Could we get a budget for a once a year activity of $10,000?
Right.
So
Uh,
a few, just based off the conversations tonight, I made a few minor updates to the PowerPoint and I'll send it back out. A couple examples is where we previously sought the number 2. So the recommendations to consider, we had it as 1 and 2, and then the conclusion we had it as 1 and 2. I just modified it to 1 and 1B. In the conclusion, put an arrow, basically to display the fact that we need one in order to get to the other, right? And then change the family friendly initiatives to number 2 and put the community initiative example slide below and modify the agenda. So the goal and the flow will happen more along the lines of our intro, meet the committee, everybody can give a brief introduction. We'll go into the recommendations, where we start and where we'll finish, right? So the first thing is to request that RFP. Second thing is hopefully what we'll be able to do from there. And then we'll go right into the conclusion with point 1 and 2, with 2 being the ask for $10,000, say, and then giving some of those examples.
I put one more item out there for people to consider. Hey, girl. One of the things that we talked about in one of our last meetings was the websites that we've seen at other municipalities. And I know we've talked about doing a new website on the town side for almost a year now, but do we do we want to consider putting that in as one last request to say, we've actually been doing some research on some of these other websites. They look super professional, super easy to use. You know, we'd like to ask that you somehow prioritize this, you know, I know it's being talked about the council's had some conversations with Ben. But would this be something we could say, we've seen other websites, we're looking at their EDC groups, their municipality sites, and they are steps above ours. So we'd also like to just recommend that you consider prioritizing this hire for next year.
I'd like to see that. Jen.
So I
I'd
would,
like to hear from
my,
Ben.
my opinion on that though would be, is that something we should wait for until after this RFP again? No.
No.
We could work on
Ben
that.
saying
No.
no.
Yeah,
If you want the town to do something different, you ask the town to do something different.
Okay.
It's not on you. It's having a good website isn't even about our economic development. It's about basic services. And this one sucks. And I knew it sucked a year ago. And I was told in July to park it because we had other bigger problems to deal with. So it's been parked since July.
I got my answer. Let's
And,
put it on.
yes.
all I need is, I mean, I know that the majority of the council also wants it, because they've all said so at different times, but it just hasn't turned into, okay, now's the time.
So if we kind of say like, our group is saying, we're seeing the same thing. You know, there's more eyes on it. We endorse this idea too,
Correct.
so.
It's 2022.
For
You
basic
have, you have to
service
have,
and for growth.
it's 2022. You have to have a
Yeah,
Dynamic.
functional plus website.
Service,
It needs to
yes.
be minimum and then plus a little bit more. I mean, it can't just
And the
be,
council's working their way to it. I
Yeah.
mean.
yeah, but
It
a
feels
little
slow at a
prod
governmental
can,
pace. I
can
don't
hurt.
mean to be
The
critical. of
self-service
anything, but
aspect would be great for resident and
Yeah.
for business. And
You're
certainly.
echoing the town council.
Correct, yeah,
So,
and
so
I
on
haven't
Monday
even
night,
seen
we're
it
gonna
yet.
have a recap of the strategic planning process. And one of their top goals is government services. It needs to be accessible, easy to use,
Yeah, efficient, yeah.
access of information and options that don't cost you a ton.
Correct. Our federal ID
I'm-
number should
I'm
get
all
us
in.
the services that we
This is
need.
kind of like the squeaky wheel, right? It's kind of like you keep hearing it over and over and
Correct.
it-
No, but you
it
have
starts
to.
becoming a
You
priority.
have to have a good website. I mean,
But it helps with business development, existing business, future
have to.
business, and,
Mhm.
you know.
and then it
So I
just,
don't have a
yeah.
quote for a new website. Perhaps the person that built our website is capable of doing a lot more, because this is like 10, 12 years old. It's the dinosaur. But I don't know what he's gonna propose, but I'm thinking 10 to 15,000, which is cheap.
Yes.
I would expect to spend 30 to 40,000 if I'm going out for an RFP to get one of the nationwide, well-known companies, Civic Plus or Vision Internet. or
you may want to
somebody.
add to that. So, I mean, just for reference only, as you know, I work at the airport. We are, our CMO is in the final stages of, we're doing a complete update of our website. Now, granted, it probably has maybe a few more widgets and bells and whistles with flight information, but it's
125.
100 grand.
I was gonna say 125. Yeah,
That's a lot.
So,
But you know what?
Maybe you can do it
Government
for
websites are very data intensive.
Right.
And they're a
The
chore.
hosting and the maintenance is gonna be.
But that's something we need to look at. And
We do.
when it comes down to the budget crunch, we don't have a Parks and Recreation program to speak of anymore, because it was decimated, worse than decimated, because went down by a lot more than just 10%. Over the years. So
Yeah.
it cost 22,000 to open Briar Point Beach for the season. And we don't even have staff to staff it. So if we want to open Briar Point Beach, if it's comes down to really competitive, it's like, well, do you want Briar Point Beach, or do you want to fund $5,000 to the EDC and $10,000 for this project? And where are our priorities in the hierarchy of what's going to move the town forward?
But you can't swim there after July 1st anyway, right? So does it really make a difference?
All part of
That's
the
the
policy
decision that needs to be
discussion.
made, right?
the
If we don't put it
citizens
on the
can raise.
table,
Well,
The
I mean,
council
every
can't
year,
make a
Soil
decision.
Lake
See,
becomes,
You had to open up a can of
unswimmable.
worms.
yeah, but that
So
becomes
why-
unswimmable every year, right?
Why wouldn't we solicit, why wouldn't we put out a solicitation for a food vendor? Where we get a cut of the money and it pays for them for the 22,000.
So
Like-
all these things are part of
Okay. sorry, you
managerial
got-
prospect. Yeah, no.
That's what I'm tasked with at work when, you know, they
That's why I
say,
love my job, because it's fascinating, a lot of different problems, lots of moving parts, but when it comes down to having a very limited
Hmm.
amount of resources, what's gonna have the biggest bang? What is gonna actually make a difference and generate more income for us later?
Town sewers to get the sewage out of the pond into the pipes.
So just to check here, so Aaron,
I
are
live
you
close
and
to there,
Craig
so I'm well
okay to
aware.
work with Ben maybe to get a draft out to everybody? Because I think it'd be good for us to try and get on the schedule for
Yes.
Yes.
mid to late February.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
the-
did.
the-
Sorry, I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I did try to share my screen so everybody can kind of see, but I think that's off. So I will send it out. I did add in the
Here, I
website.
can let
as
you
the-
share screen. I think.
Okay. Yeah, that would be perfect if you don't mind.
Oh, that's me sharing screen.
I think go right under participants, right?
I'll make you co-host.
It would say either a presenter or co-host, yeah.
There we go. Okay, now try. I was gonna say our council meetings in February are the 14th and the 28th, so it would make sense to aim for the 28th so
Yeah.
that you can have one more meeting before
Okay,
you get on the agenda.
We have an agenda meeting
On the
setting,
31st.
setting meeting. That we can also bring up that we'd like to hold a spot on the 28th.
Okay. So some of the modifications I made is here. On this slide, I put it to 1 and 1B. Again, kept everything else the same. In the conclusion, I did make this a little smaller so you guys can actually, the 1 to 1B to kind of show these in joint. I can put a box around it maybe to make that a little more clear. The family friendly initiatives as number 2, approximately $10,000, which we can go into more detail while we're in front of the town council. And then 3 is, we can obviously change this, but to define the website requirements and needs in order to support the town. The EDC has explored other websites and found neighboring towns to be far ahead of us in terms of content, self-service, and support for both businesses and residents.
My suggestion for this slide, and this is just a technical thing that I've learned. The fewer words you can use and the bigger font you can use, the better.
bullets.
And use your mouth to fill in
Notes. Okay.
the space.
Okay,
And if
yeah,
you
I
have
can,
pictures, that's always nice for a slide.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think
I
on the
do-
slide before, Aaron, we can just add some verbiage about, asking the town council to endorse the approval of RFP, et cetera. So some of the keywords that you shared with us earlier.
okay. Yep.
Okay, cool.
And then this will be the last one.
Yep.
And then I'll just add a,
Very nice.
Yeah, do we take the
Final.
story walk off and just
No,
keep?
no,
and
they-
then just-
it's
okay,
No.
okay,
Ideas.
No,
Yeah,
okay.
just say
okay.
these are, yeah, these are-
Keep it there,
Example,
okay.
so it's
No,
better.
Craig.
It's on it, it's on it,
you're
okay.
not, you tried to remove it already.
All
You're not
right, all
doing
right.
it.
You know what we should do? We should do for Hidden Gem Project, we should make a little elephant, so we'll hide little elephants around the.
Ochre.
That's cute.
I have a question on one item
Peanuts.
that it's not on the agenda, so it's more just a
Squirrels.
question. Last time we had talked about getting licenses from Joanne from the past like 30 days. So we could have someone from the committee just call that business and check in and see how their experience was. Is there a chance we could get that from her?
I talked to her about that, and we don't get licenses for every business, because we don't license all businesses. We just have the ones that come in for victualling, liquor, and
Uh,
the typical stuff. So
It's stateside typically, right?
Well, so, I mean, if you look at the town council agenda, my executive packets have like
Yeah.
the names and stuff, but no contact information.
hmm,
So would it be possible to just see whoever's actually come in and had to either
Sure.
renew or whatever
sure.
and get those contacts, and then maybe we can just
Yeah.
talk offline about.
Just
who we-
engage with those
Yeah.
that have engaged.
Yeah,
But I think I,
And in the packet that you have, it has their application, their name, address, and
I think
stuff.
you
It might
said-
not have a phone.
I
number
also
or
recently
email.
found, I think you're supposed to register your business regardless of what type of business it is, but I don't know that everyone
Enforcement's
knows
a-
that or certainly does it,
Okay.
but yeah. So I'm sure that there's probably a
So
lot
I'm
of people
not,
like.
I'm not
"Oh,
looking to enforce. I think I'm more along the lines of
No,
just
no, I
saying,
know.
how was your experience with the town?
Yeah, no, anything. we
Because
can
they
do to
had to
capture
based
them.
on their business type.
Yeah.
Like-
And
like
how was their
bait.
experience?
Yeah, just to
They
hear
had a
what would
victualling
have
license,
been,
but
what would have made it easier, or just any feedback they have.
Yeah, Christian's a good
Um,
guy.
and outreach is great. I mean, that's one of my best experiences in economic development is just pounding the pavement, stepping into any office. I remember I went into, what was it called? It had a very generic name, like All Ag or something. But it turned out, even though it was just this little tiny office with 2 people in it, it was a multi-billion worldwide company that just had an office in town.
No
And
kidding.
I had no idea.
Wow.
And they're like, yeah, we're looking at getting warehouse space and we're expanding here and they're doing all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So you never know what's actually going on in your
Right.
own town.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, the best part is that they help us do our job, because they're gonna tell us what we either maybe don't know or didn't think was a big deal, and then we're like, okay, again, it's all about refining our focus.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where just organizations like a chamber that have ambassadors that go out to businesses and, do greetings and ribbon cuttings. And I know Westerly Credit Union had their ribbon cutting a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to be there, but I got hung up on something else and I couldn't make it. But I like to be there for that, because then you're welcoming the business to town. And well, that's when you could reach out to them and just say, hey, what's your experience been?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't wanna,
Well, just.
I don't wanna volunteer all of us, but I mean, again, I'm sorry, since you just said that, if you're comfortable. I mean, I'm not representing the town, but I mean, I could at least represent and report back.
Yeah, so.
I mean, just
Sure.
as an option, I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
do
yeah,
I,
that would be
Can
can you
great.
just go to this,
Welcoming.
shake some hands, and say
Yes.
I'm on the EDC, and hey, if there's anything you should, that you feedback you want to provide us, here's my email, and I'll be happy to report back
Yeah,
to
I
the
know, that
town
would be
manager.
great. Just like, it's not all on you either.
Yeah, that's fine.
And maybe I'll get one of those free stress balls or something,
Yeah.
or a pen.
You can't get anything over $25.
I know, that's why I said a stress ball and a
All right,
pen.
just trying to keep the time here. Did anyone have any last minute?
What,
statements, or-
what time, on the 28th, assuming we do that, is the town council meeting?
They
6:30?
usually
Six.
start between 6:30 and 7,
I'll just put
Um,
6:30.
but
Thank you.
depending on where we are in the lineup, it could be 30 minutes before we get to us, or an hour. I'm not sure.
I would want to go and watch the whole thing anyway.
We've been making a point to try to push groups like yours up to the front.
Okay.
As much as
Okay.
we can.
Thank
but-
you.
And then we do have to open for public comment.
Yes, thank you, John. Is there any public comment at the current moment?
I know Ross was on. Not
We
anymore.
don't
Okay.
have we have no attendees.
Okay, there's no public comment. A motion to adjourn the meeting,
I'll make a motion.
second, and all vote. Yes,
Aye.
Aye.
and we're closing at 7:47 PM.
Thank you.
This is great.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks again,
Seth.
Aaron.
Thanks,
See you,
Joe.
John.
Good night.